I'm a bit nervous. This is the first time we are taking the bikes in the plane. Now, if we were going to fly in and out and stay in the same location, we could have packed the bikes in hard suitcases or bike boxes, but for this trip we are going to be staying in 4 different locations. We had to pack the bikes so as to be able to move from location to location on the bikes, as well as carry the packaging around with us as well. So for this to work, we decided to go with IKEA Dimper bags, double wrapped with cardboard in between the bags and cut to size as protection for the bikes. We used a template that we found on the awesome 2 Bikes for Adventure channel, and when we unpacked the bikes at the other end, we were delighted to see the bikes had made the journey intact. All we needed to do was repair a puncture, then cycle straight from the airport to a nearby hotel that we booked for the first night. It's such a luxury to be able to do this straight from the airport onto a segregated cycle path. It also feels quite strange to be cycling at 11:30 at night on dark paths and feel safe. You can see all the packaging that we used to protect the bikes for the flight balancing on my handlebars. I promise you they won't be there for this entire video. We arrived at our first hotel quite late at night. The television was on, so I had to scope the room as it sounded like someone was already in there. We were also delighted to see that it was an apartment style room. By this point I was completely exhausted and needing a good night's sleep, but looking forward to the day ahead. The next morning we woke up to a glorious day and the sight of a Boeing 747 in the grounds of the Corendon Hotel that we were staying in. We also thought this apartment was definitely designed for our Bromptons. After our coffee, it was time to head out and travel to our next location that was just a little bit closer to Amsterdam Central. The quality of the infrastructure in what looks like the middle of nowhere is quite frankly ridiculous. I mean, how good is this? I quickly realised that saying hello and good morning to other cyclists as I passed by them, because I'm happy to see other cyclists, doesn't get the same response as when you do it back home. When you get to parts where you have to share the road, it still feels safer than back home. Drivers are definitely more patient, and this road just looks like it's designed to put cyclists first. Yes, that bag of cardboard is stuck to the front of my bike again. Just ignore it and it'll go away. It's always great when you arrive in another country to see the different styles of buildings, road signs, traffic lights and trams. Just look around and soak it all in. The road user hierarchy is definitely evident everywhere you go here, and this is a perfect example. We stopped off at an Albert Heijn grocery store to get some food. I struggle to pronounce this, so for the rest of the trip I decided to call it Uncle Albert's. It was starting to get really warm, but we were glad to be catching a breeze as we cycled, enjoying the cooling shade of tree-lined streets and underpasses as we slowly made our way to the next location. Another thing that was really cool is this full nursery travelling across this junction on 2 cargo bikes. We arrived at our apartment room for the next few nights, and yet again we were totally delighted with the whole setup. I also must admit that's quite a decent urban view from the window, so much going on here. Our hotel was right next to Sloterdijk train station. Later on that day we headed out for a wee walk to check the surroundings. Seeing row upon row of bikes lined up gives me a feeling of warmth, knowing that when infrastructure is there, it will be used in abundance. It's like looking into the future. Here is a Strava map from our trip earlier. Just look at that elevation gain at the bottom of the screen. There was quite a few hostels in and around the area. I particularly liked this one made out of old train carriages. Further around our walk, I couldn't help but wonder what this massive building in the distance was. What I didn't know is that I was going to find out the next day.
Way.
We're going under that bridge.
Today we are going to cycle from Sloterdijk to Zaandam. This journey includes a short ferry crossing. Initially I thought this was a quirky hostel, but it's actually an architect firm specialising in architecture and garden designs and the positive effects plants can have on our minds. The building that I spotted yesterday is a coal-fired power station, although I'm not quite sure if it's still in use. Further along we were treated to a very strong smell. It looks like household waste is possibly being used as an energy source here. It was at this point we decided to up the pace. From an unpleasant smell to a pleasant surprise, the kissing couple are located here, right next to the short ferry crossing. This statue could possibly beat Glasgow's very own Duke of Wellington for services to traffic management. I'm always eager to take a shot of any skate parks I see on my travels. Sadly, right after this we got another flat tyre, so headed to this excellent bike shop to get a few spare inner tubes. Giant gingerbread houses made out of Lego is probably the best description I can give to these buildings. Still, it is quite cool to cycle around doing the tourist selfie thing. After the cycle here it was time to grab a bite to eat, so we headed to the nearest Uncle Albert's for some lunch.
You know, this place might be amazing, but it's no Glasgow Fort.
To me, it's always strange to see different names for household brands when travelling around other countries. I was also starting to think and compare shops to the ones back home in Scotland.
That's Andrex. It's the Andrex puppy. Definitely Savers, 100%. Right, down that street.
The houses and streets in this area are straight out of a fairy tale. We absolutely loved exploring it on our bikes. The weather that day was just superb. We will definitely come here again next time we are in Amsterdam. It was now time to head back to the hotel. After the ferry crossing, we had an opportunity to get a proper photo of the bikes in front of the kissing couple. We then decided to take a different route back to avoid the smell from earlier. I spotted a strategically placed bin along the route and used this to get rid of some litter. This seemed to be on a cycling superhighway that went on in a straight line for miles. The freedom that you feel cycling on this infrastructure has to be experienced to believe. It's a freedom to travel that's unparalleled anywhere else on earth. It's only when you use it to get everywhere you need to go that it hits you like a thunderbolt. Yes, my legs are tired, but the sense of well-being and happiness in my head right now will stay with me for days. The Dutch have perfected it, and everyone else should observe and learn. A vast network of cycling paths is everywhere you need to be, and it's in abundance. This ensures that you can go wherever you like by bike without the stress of mixing with fast traffic at any point. It brings amenities closer to you by increasing the circle of what is within reach just by cycling for 15 minutes. This was great for us when we decided to look for a big Uncle Albert later in the evening. There was only small shops within a short walk from our hotel, but we wanted more of a selection, so decided to look further afield. Our legs were done from earlier, but knowing that a bigger shop was only 7 minutes away by bike as opposed to 25 minutes walking distance made the journey more desirable and achievable.